Hi there, my name is Alex. I am one of the naturalists at Okeeheelee Nature Center, and I'm also a certified yoga instructor. So today we are going to be doing an Earth Day yoga class in honor of Earth Day, which is coming up April 22nd. So today we're going to be doing a lot of grounding poses, but also some balancing, some lifting poses. You'll see how it all fits together. But before we get started, just a couple things. You might want to grab a support or a bolster, or that's the very fancy word for a towel. A pillow will work. This will help us later on during our hip openers. You can just grab that, set it to the side. We are also going to kind of focus, especially if you're newer to yoga, on listening to our bodies. So a lot of what we're doing today, we're trying to connect to the earth, we're trying to connect to, something bigger than us, but just as important is listening to what our body's telling us. So if I am guiding us into a pose that is painful for you or really doesn't feel good in your body's going to be the best teacher. Just come out of that pose and we'll move on to the next one, but it's just really important to pay attention to how you're feeling regardless of what I'm saying. So with all of that in mind, we can go ahead and get started. We're actually going to begin today in child's pose. So you can bring your knees underneath you. You can either have them together or if you want to separate them slightly for a little bit of a deeper stretch. And you're just going to walk your hands out, coming slowly down. Maybe you stop here, maybe this feels good. If you want to come all the way down, extend those arms out, and then you can drop your forehead to the mat. So we'll stay here for a few breaths, just beginning to check in with the body, allowing yourself to get comfortable, to sink down into the pose. There's really nothing that you have to do to support yourself. Mother Earth takes care of everything in this pose. And as you begin to take your deep breaths, see if you can scan the body, see if there's anywhere that you're holding tension. See if you can invite the breath to begin to loosen up some of those areas. And we're going to be here for 7 breaths, so bring your forehead to the mat, get nice and comfy. Take your next inhale in through the nose and exhale out through the mouth. We begin to walk our way back up, bringing the hands out in front and coming into our tabletop position. So we just want to take a second and make sure that we're all lined up, building a nice strong foundation. So the fingers are going to be nice and spread out like a starfish. You're going to have your shoulders in line with the wrists. And you're going to want your hips to be in line with your knees. So you can either tuck the toes or leave the tops of the feet on the mat, whatever feels better for you. We're going to come into a few cat-cow poses. So with our inhale, we're going to tip the pelvis forward, allow the belly to drop, the gaze to lift. This is our cow pose. And then exhale, grounding down into the hands, rounding those shoulders, drawing the navel up to the spine like a Halloween cat. This is going to be our cat pose. So we're going to take 3 more of these, but go at your own pace, allowing the movement to match to the breath. So if you want to go a little faster or a little slower, this is your opportunity to check in with the body, to see what it needs to feel good. And on your inhale, coming into your cow. And when you exhale, rounding that spine, dropping that head into your cat pose. Last one. your next inhale, we'll come back to center. We're going to come into our first kind of grounding and balancing pose. So you're going to extend that right leg behind you, tugging the toes. You can do a couple little bounces here, like a runner stretch to open up those hamstrings. Then we're going to come back to center again, making sure that we're lined up over our hips and our hands. And then we're going to inhale, bring that left arm, so the opposite arm out in front, and the right foot up behind us. So you want to reach in opposite directions, keeping that back foot flexed. This is going to lend a lot of intention and integrity to the pose. If this is easy peasy for you, you can go ahead and bend that back leg. If you want to bring that front arm around behind you, taking hold of the wrist. And from here, grounding down into our hands, that is what allows us to rise up in this pose. There can be no rising without rooting down first. Keeping that gaze straight ahead, keeping that breath nice and steady. When you're ready, you can release, slowly coming back, and we'll come into the opposite side. So extending that left leg behind you, again, taking a couple little bounces if you want to open up that hamstring. With your next inhale, you can bring that right arm up, that left leg back. Again, finding that opposing action here, the fingers reaching out to the front, the foot reaching out behind you. And one side might feel really different. So go ahead and take your time here. If you want to move on to the next pose, bend that back leg, bring that hand around, find the ankle, and lift. You can take 2 more breaths. 1, 2, gently release. And bring your hands back down, bring your knees back down. And from here, we're going to tuck our toes and lift our hips up into our downward facing dog. So, especially if this is the first dog of the day for you, you might want to walk those heels out, alternating, dropping one heel to the ground, bending the opposite knee. We call this walking the dog. And you just want to take a glance at your hands and make sure that you're really pushing back through those fingers. You don't want to see a lot of like bent skin at the wrists. And from here, take a nice deep breath, and we'll slowly walk our feet up to the top of the mat. You can keep those knees nice and bent. Bend over those legs, let the head drop. And with your inhale, very slowly, vertebrae by vertebrae, using the core to support you, we're going to roll up into our standing position, shoulders and head as the last thing to come up. So next we're going to come into our sun salutation. So take a breath here, check in with your body, see how you feel, and then we will begin our sun salutations. Okay guys, so we're going to come into our sun salutation. This is a very common sequence of yoga poses that you'll see in a lot of vinyasa classes. And it's a really nice way to not only welcome the rising sun, but to also warm up kind of all parts of the body. So we're standing at the top of our mat. We're going to go ahead and inhale our arms up, holding the whole sun in our hands, and then exhale, bowing forward over our legs, hands to the ground. Inhale our right foot back, and then exhale the left foot back to meet it. Now this is our high plank pose. We want to make sure we're really strong in this pose. Our core is really engaged. It's not this, it's not this. We're in a nice long plank pose. Oops, there we go. So from here we're going to come into our chaturanga, keeping our elbows close to the body. We're going to lower ourselves halfway down, and then inhale, rolling up into our upward dog. So tops of our feet are on the mat, our thighs are lifted. Exhale, pushing back into our downward facing dog. Inhale, lift that right foot up, and then exhale, drawing that knee to the chest, coming over those wrists. We're going to plant gently our foot in between our hands. Inhale that back foot forward, exhale, bowing over those knees, and inhale, slowly rolling up to stand, our arms up, and exhale, hands to our heart. So we're going to do the other side, but I do want to offer a really quick modification, chaturanga, where we lower down, and that push-up can be kind of challenging. And if you have any kind of shoulder injuries or anything like that, it can be does not feel so good. So we have an alternative. So in our plank, we're nice and strong. We can drop our knees, our chest and our chin to the mat. And we'll come up into cobra rather than our upward facing dog. And then just right back down into downward facing dog. So that's an option that's available to you. You can test it out. If chaturanga feels good, then you can go ahead and stick with that. But we're going to go and do our second side of sun salutation. So inhale our arms up, and exhale, bowing forward, letting that head drop. Inhale, bring that left foot back, and exhale, right foot back into our high plank. And from here, either chaturanga or knees, chest, chin to the mat. Inhaling into upward dog or cobra, our elbows nice and bent. Tucking those toes, and then exhale, downward facing dog. And we'll inhale that left leg up, and exhale, stepping it to the top of the mat. Inhale that right foot forward, and exhale over the legs. And inhale, coming all the way up. So usually when you do that as sun salutation or as a vinyasa flow, it'll be one motion per breath. So we'll get a chance to practice that later. But here we are in our mountain pose, so I'm going to just make it a little easier for you guys to see. Mountain pose. Looks like we're just standing, right? But this is actually a really incredibly active pose, and it's built from the ground up. So we'll start with our feet. We want all four corners of the feet to be grounded on the mat. So you can lift those toes up, spread them out, get a nice, lots of love there for our feet, the things that literally connect us to the earth. And while we're here, we're going to kind of roll on the outside of the foot and make sure that this top top outside corner and back outside corner are grounded. So from here, keeping those points of connection, bring the inside of the feet back onto the mat so you have all four corners of the foot grounded. And from here you can release the toes. So now you're truly connected to the earth. From here we're going to lift those arches of the feet, lift the inner thigh so that all of our legs are really activated in this pose. And then we come to our pelvis. So a lot of people have the tendency to kind of, tilt the pelvis forward. Maybe you're more of a, one of these guys. But we want to imagine that our pelvis is a bowl of water. And so we want to keep it perfectly neutral here. We don't want to spill it front ways or back ways. So our nice neutral pelvis, our core is engaged, kind of like when we're in our chaturanga. The spine stretches up nice and tall from that neutral pelvis. From here, we're going to inhale, lift the shoulders all the way up to the ears, and exhale, roll them back along the back of the body. Now the shoulders are open, the heart is nice and open, and the head gently, same thing with the neck, gently comes up in a very supported position. And now we're in mountain pose. Now we're grounded. We're working hard. So from here, obviously no Earth Day yoga is complete without tree pose. So we're going to just shift the weight a little bit onto the left foot. We're still keeping the pelvis neutral. We're still keeping those 4 points of connection in the foot. And we're going to inhale, see if we can lift that knee into the chest. You can hold on to it. And very common in this is to kind of, now your spine is rounded. So make sure that you're nice and tall, that your pelvis isn't popping out to the back. And you can play here, see how this feels. But to move on to tree, we're going to take the ankle, bring the leg out, and you have a couple options here. So you can place the foot here on the inner thigh. You can place the foot on the shin, or you can even place it against the ankle with the big toe on the ground to ground you, to stable you. What we absolutely don't want to do is this, right on the inside of the knee. That is not a strong point of contact, so please don't do that. But any other position is fine. Again, checking in with yourself, making sure that your hip's not popping out. You can bring your hands to your heart. So balancing can be very difficult. I recommend picking a static point on the wall behind you and focusing your gaze on that. If you really want to get tricky, you can try to close your eyes and see how that feels. It's not easy. Woo. Okay, and we're back. And if you want to play around with it, you can blossom. You can be a beautiful oak tree. You can be a palm tree in a hurricane. You can play with it. You can have fun with it. And when you're ready to go on to the other side, gently bring that knee in front and we'll lower it back down. Whew, you can kind of shake out that standing leg and we'll go ahead and switch to the other side. So reconnecting with those 4 points in our right foot. We're going to inhale that left knee up into the chest. You can give yourself a little bit of a hug here. And when you're ready to go into your tree, whatever you did on the other side, you can try it on this side, or if you want to try something different, find your focus point. Take a breath here. But again, if you want to play, if you want to try closing your eyes, it's tricky. You want to be a Christmas tree, you can bring your arms up, or a pine tree. Feel that really you're rooting down into that foot and you're lifting up like the canopy of a tree. Hands back to center, knee to the center, and both feet back on the ground. So we're going to go ahead and just heel toe our feet a little bit wider, about hip width apart, and we're going to come into our high lunge. So this is going to take place at the top of the mat, feet nice and wide, and then we'll move into the beginning of our first vinyasa sequence. Okay guys, welcome back. Hopefully you had a chance to get some water, reset yourself a little bit. So we are in our wide-legged mountain pose, our wide stance mountain pose. Same principles apply. Our feet are grounded in all 4 corners. Our pelvis is nice and neutral. Our heart is open. Our shoulders are relaxed. So from here, we're going to inhale, lift that right leg up, and kind of hinge back into our high lunge. So our left leg, we've got the knee in line with the ankle. We don't want, that's not going to be well supported for the body. The back heel is lifted, and that right hip is really turning forward. So I'm keeping my hips nice and neutral in the front. My thigh is really engaged, reaching towards the sky so that I'm really strong in this pose. From in here, we're going to inhale, lift our arms up, and we're going to come into our eagle arms. So bring your arms down like a goalpost, right arm in front, left arm over, crossing at the elbows. From here, you can keep the back of the hands together, or if you want to take another twist, bring the palms together. And we're going to keep those elbows up at shoulder length, so you're getting that, shoulder height. So you're getting that nice opening in the back of the shoulders. From here, we're going to plant that back foot at a 45-degree angle, untangle our arms coming into our warrior 2. Same thing, our knee is in line with the ankle, our pelvis is neutral, our spine is rising up straight from that, and our shoulders are nice and relaxed. So kind of like you're surfing, right? Our gaze is going to be out over that front finger, nice and strong. From here, we're going to inhale, flip that front palm to the sky, and then exhale, dipping back into our peaceful warrior. We really want to make sure we keep that front knee nice and bent. And from here, bringing that front elbow to the front knee, taking that back arm and kind of bringing it parallel to the ground until your upper arm is touching your ear. This is our extended side angle. So if you've been doing yoga for a while, maybe you take your hand down here, but it's really important that this side of the body is not getting crunched. So it's a little easier to keep that space if you're up here on your elbow. Whatever feels good in your body, this is your chance to test a few things out and see what feels right for you. So from here, we're going to come into our next pose, half moon. I'm just going to scoot a little bit back on my mat so I don't go out of the frame. but you are going to bring your front hand about 6 inches in front of your foot, keeping that knee bent. You can kind of hop that back foot in a little bit, and very slowly we're going to lift that back leg up. So again, we're grounding down into all 4 corners of that feet, grounding down into the fingertips to give us support to lift up. You want to stack those hips on top of one another, keep that back foot flexed, and lift that right arm up. This is a really fun pose to do against a wall if you're worried about maybe toppling backwards, but falling is a really important part of yoga. So, I wouldn't be too worried about it. Even the teachers do it. So from here, we're going to very gracefully come back into our Warrior Two pose. Inhale, turning that front foot towards the long side of your mat, coming into our straddle pose. So from here, inhale the arms up, and we're going to come forward in a forward bend, hands down, under the shoulders. So from here, we're going to take an open twist. So if you want to take that left hand, bring it to the center, keeping that right hand maybe on the hip bones to start with, making sure that you're nice and level. And from here, we're going to open to the right. So we don't want our hips to go off center. So if all you can do to keep it like that is just this, that's fine. Open the arm, reaching towards the sky. And we'll exhale, bring that right hand down to replace the left. Left hand comes to the sacrum. Take that twist, and then you can lift that arm. And exhale, back to center. Inhale, hands to the hips, and exhale, coming back up. So now we're going to do the same thing, just on the other side. So we're going to twist that right foot, toes towards the short end of the mat, lift that back heel, coming into our high lunge. And if balance is an issue, you can kind of walk the front foot out. Taking that wider stance is going to give you more balance. So from here, bringing our hands down into our goal post, the left arm comes underneath, the right arm comes on top. And again, this side might feel really different, so take it slow. If you can only do palms of, or back of the hands, on the other side, just try palms, see how it feels. Keep those elbows nice and elevated. Deep breath. And from here, we're going to plant that back foot, unwrap those arms, coming into our Warrior Two. Coming back into our surfer pose. Inhale, flip that palm to the sky. Exhale, dip it back. And inhale, coming into our extended side angle. So again, elbow to the top of the thigh. That back arm comes parallel. That just usually feels better for the shoulder. That's why we don't just go like this. So this is kinder to the shoulder joints. And you want to keep those shoulders stacked, that heart nice and open. When you're ready, we'll come back into our half moon pose on this side. So bringing that hand to the hip, that right hand about 6 inches out in front. I'm just going to move my leg back. And when you're ready, lifting that back foot, really making sure that you're flexing that lifted foot. That's going to give you a lot more support. Stacking those hips and lifting that left arm. For me, this is definitely my easier side. And we'll gently float back, coming back into our straddle pose, our toes facing the long end of the mat. Inhale the arms up, and exhale, bowing forward. So we'll walk those hands, kind of scuttle them like little crabs over to the right. So you get a nice long stretch in that side body. And we'll scuttle them over to the left. And from here, we'll plant the hands, turn that left foot And we're back to the front of the mat where we started. And we're going to take one vinyasa here, or if you want to just go into child's pose and meet us in down dog, that's fine. We'll exhale, stepping that left foot back, chaturanga or knees, chest, chin, upward dog or cobra, and then exhale, downward facing dog. Or if you choose child's pose. Okay guys, if you are doing your vinyasa, we will meet the rest of the group in our child's pose. So again, you can take the knees wide, or you can have them together, whatever feels better, and just begin to walk those hands out. So this is the pose that we started class in, and so take a moment as you revisit it to see if it feels any different after going through our yoga sequence. Some of those areas where maybe you were holding tension or unease, do any of those areas feel a little looser, a little more open? Take a moment to just check in, scan the body, and see how you feel. No judgments. We'll stay there for about 3 breaths. We'll slowly walk our hands back up, and we're going to come into our pigeon pose. So if you have your prop, your bolster or your towel, go ahead and get that before we come into our downward facing dog. So from here, we're going to inhale, lift that right leg up. You can bend that knee, maybe open the hips a little bit. And then we're going to come forward and draw that right knee to the right wrist and the right foot to the left wrist. So ideally you're having your shin as parallel to the front of the mat as possible. We're coming to our pigeon pose. So here is where our bolster can be quite useful. We're going to kind of tuck that underneath the right hip or whichever leg you have in front. And that will kind of make it easier for you to keep your hips level in this pose. Take a look at that back leg, make sure that foot's not sliggling out like mine is. You kind of want it to line up and go straight back. Or you can tuck the toes underneath if that's easier. This can be an intense hip opening pose, so if this feels good to you, stay here. If you'd like to go a little bit deeper, you can begin to walk the hands out coming onto the forearms, or you can bring the head all the way to the ground. We'll stay here for 5 breaths. With your next inhale, begin to bring those hands a little closer, walk them back. Plant them down. You can tuck that back toe and lift the hips up, coming into your downward facing dog. Maybe taking one more little hip opener there. You can bring this prop to the other side. We're going to inhale, lift that left leg up, bending the knee, opening the hips. Should feel really good. And we're going to bring that left knee forward to the left hand, that foot towards the right. And again, one side might feel really different, so maybe you could get your shin farther forward on the other side, and this one is a little bit more close to the body. That's totally normal. Maybe you feel like you needed a prop on one side, but you don't on the other. Again, that can be really normal as well. I like to use the props just because it feels good. Check that back leg. And from here, either staying up here or coming down to the elbows, or bringing the full head down to the mat. The next inhale, we'll slowly walk our hands back up. Can kind of lift that hip up and remove the prop. We don't need that anymore. And we can draw that back knee forward, bringing it to line up both feet on the mat and make our way onto our backs. So we are making our way towards Savasana, towards the final pose of the class. But first we're going to just let the knees windshield wiper from side to side. You can take a little bit of a broader, take your feet a little wider apart if that feels better. This is a really nice way to just open up the low back, get out any kinks or anything like that. And you can go ahead and let the knees fall over to the left side. If you want to take it a little deeper, you can bring that left foot on top of the right knee. Bring your arms out like a goalpost, or if you want something a little more grounding, you can keep the hands on the stomach, or you can do one hand on the heart, one hand on the stomach, whatever feels good for you. And take that gaze over the opposite shoulder. From here, bring those feet back to the ground, maybe take one more side to side. And then we'll allow the knees to fall over to the opposite side, so over to the right. Again, if you want that deeper stretch, you can take that right foot on top of the left knee and take that gaze over the left shoulder. From here, we'll gently bring both of the feet back to the mat. Inhale and draw those knees into the chest. You can give yourself a little hug. Maybe rock side to side. And from here, we're going to come into our Savasana, so extending those legs out, allowing the arms to come out to the side, palms up to the sky. You can close your eyes. This is a moment to rest, to integrate your practice. No need for thoughts or even, holding on to the breath. This is a moment to just purely be present. If you find your mind drifting, bring your attention back to the breath. And while you're here in Savasana, I wanted to share a poem in honor of Earth Day and in honor of the earth that supports us. This is a poem that was written by Wendell Berry and then adapted into a folk song. It's called When I Rise. And when I rise, let me rise, like a bird, joyfully. When I fall, let me fall, like a leaf, gracefully. And when I stand, let me stand, like a tree, strong and tall. And when I lay, let me lay, like a lake reflecting all. And when I resist, let me resist, like the sea relentlessly. And when I sing, I will sing, like the wind, wild and free. So with your next inhale, you can go ahead and wiggle those fingers, maybe take a little bit of a deeper breath. And we're just gonna roll onto our right side. You can use that arm as a pillow. And with your next breath, we'll inhale and come up to our seated pose. Thank you guys so much for joining us for this Earth Day celebration. I hope you have an excellent Earth Day. Thank you.